if I go to a tile store right now, I'm overloaded with the amount of tiles, and it's like, where do I even start? Where a designer is constantly evaluating product, researching new products, they can kind of steer you away from, yeah, you don't want to use that product because of XYZ. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the NS Podcast. This podcast is brought to you by RenoRun. RenoRun is an on-demand delivery service for building materials. It's something that we've been using for a couple months now. We used to spend hours literally kind of writing a list of what we needed, kind of stopping what we were doing, and actually stopping the work that we were doing on site, getting in the truck, driving to the hardware store, or the lumber yard, picking up what we need, probably grabbing a coffee on the way back, getting back to the job site, and trying to get back to work, all in what is usually at least a 2-hour ordeal. And you got to think about how many times we do that a month. We were obviously wasting time. RenoRun has been a great solution for us for that. It allows us to stay working. You can open up the app on your phone, on the computer. We even have a dedicated sales guy that can help us with some of the stuff when we need to, but they can get that whatever we need to the job site in 2 hours, or sometimes even less than that. The nice thing is they bring nice fresh coffee with them as well. So I want to appreciate them being a sponsor to this podcast. What's going on in the world of NS Builders? Today had a punch list walk with our Back Bay project. The super modern one. I alluded to it as Project 142 in the last episode. Someone reached out and was like, hey, I wonder if you could describe the projects a little bit better rather than using the numbers. Doug has been all over me about these project names. I'm open to suggestions. I've always liked the numerical side of it, but I completely understand how it can get confusing. The reason that we had actually originally done it is because of privacy, but either way, our Back Bay project, we had done a punch list walk today. We are so close to delivering that project. It has been years in the making. Very patient couple. Looking back, we definitely wish that we had taken a more traditional design approach. It was so much design build at such a high level of caliber that, frankly, we nailed it. The place is beautiful, but we know that we could have been more efficient with our time should we have taken the time to get into design and work through a traditional design, then build, rather than design build. And I want to touch on something on that. We had a question come in from another homeowner. We'll get into that at the end of this podcast. We also we kicked off our demolition for our Needham project with Steve Teak. Super excited about this project. We brought Steve in after the after the homeowner had shared some of the photos that he had online that she was really attracted to. We reached out to Steve to see if he would do a project here in Massachusetts. And of course he said yes, because we are working on this project. So he is finishing the architectural design. We just got our structural drawings back last week. So we're working with, nice work, Doug. Little flash going off. You can put that in the blooper reel. So we are working through finalizing pricing, getting everything ready, but we jumped right into demolition on this project. Let's talk about demolition. Specifically, the house was actually a historic home. Which is sad to see it go, and unfortunately the reason that it did go is because it simply was not salvageable. It had been neglected for years, water had made its way through the roof, and really it was a very spongy old house. They stuccoed over clapboard siding at some point. It was unfortunate, and I think the story of the home was that it was maybe the original general store that was in another location of that town that got relocated there and added onto, and I think, lack of better terms, bastardized over the years. So we salvaged some goods out of the home. We salvaged some lumber. If you caught that on our Instagram story at one point a couple weeks ago, Doug was there as well. I think I talked about this in the last podcast, but we're going to turn that into some furniture in the future. And now we have removed the home. If you check out last week's site visit, you can see all the action behind that. And I talk about the specifics behind setting that site up, but very specifically, and what is so incredibly important is the communication with our neighbors. In the city, we're used to it. We're usually notifying people that are in the condo below, next door, above, letting them know we're in the building, so on and so forth. We take that same mentality and bring it to these suburbs and let all the homes, basically an eye shot of the project, know, hey, what's going on, who we are. If there's a problem, here's our contact information. Mike is going to be the site super on that job, so he'll be point contact. He's going to be involved through that project all the way through completion, which we're super excited about. Had the opportunity to sit down with Mike and kind of talk one-on-one about what that project means for us and what that project means for him. And it's exciting to see him get so riled up about the project and getting it kicked off. So stay tuned for that project as it evolves. And then equally, our Rhode Island project is, we're dealing with some complexities when it comes to the structural design around concrete and steel. So there's a lot of phasing that we have to figure out, like what goes first. For example, we have a very untraditional garage where usually we have a slab on grade. Here we have a slab on metal deck, but we also have a slab in the basement. So we need to, place one concrete slab before we place the other, because the concrete slab in the garage needs to be supported while it's being placed. So Brian is doing a great job down on that job site and paying attention to the coordination, working really closely with the steel guys, concrete and site work guys. But we also had the framer on site last week to start setting sills and getting ready for kicking off framing. So I want you to make sure you stay tuned on that project. Rockwell has partnered up with us on that project to bring a lot of the exterior detailing when it comes to installation. So we're going to be walking through a lot of that. Julia, who is the architect, she's also agreed to kind of help put together a ton of detailing, and we might even be doing a blog article on how we're going about using rock wool or mineral wool as an insulator throughout the whole project, below slab, below grade, on the exterior of the house, as well as the interior of the house. And then back in the city, we are in our final phases of our Charlestown kitchen project. I'm super excited to share that because I didn't think we had a lot of before photos, but I actually came across a few. Caitlin Winslow, the architect, had saved some, working alongside Kelly McGill as well. It designed really an incredible kitchen space, and that project actually grew as we started it, and we ended up doing the third floor. We added a dormer off the back of it, which has some incredible views of Charlestown, with its own private roof deck, which I believe is going to one of the children in the family, which is just so cool because it's such a cool room. It's got a ton of natural light. And the guys actually uncovered the 48 by 96 inch skylight in the kitchen. It's been covered up this whole time. I haven't been on site to see it. Patrick and Cooper were on site getting that thing uncovered because Liz and Tim have the metal roof contractor coming out to wrap up the metal roof on that addition down in the kitchen. But that skylight, I'm just super excited to see how much light it brings in. In the photos, it's probably hard to understand. I think we had a comment saying, not enough windows in the kitchen to be desirable, which, hey, I totally agree, but this is a single-family home that is surrounded by buildings all the way around, as close as 28 inches. Very tight alleyways, so there's not a lot of window area that we can have. Most of the windows are on the front of the home, so that's exactly why we did this big skylight above. And then we also kicked off a new project over in the back bay, another one in the back bay, which is, we're just through demo. The guys over at Bernardo got in there, get that place completely cleaned out. And, I think I mentioned this on the last podcast. The nice thing is we're able to kind of demo and then hit pause and finalize design. And that one is with John Buckley Architects. Super, super excited to see that thing come together. I know the team has put up some mock-ups. We're trying to get some sort of glass curtain wall structure approved on the back side. Sounds like the first round didn't go as planned, so we're doing some revisions, but would love to see more natural light on the backside of this traditional brownstone, which is actually right on Starro Drive, which is a pretty incredible spot. You get to see the Charles River just over Starro. And then what I'm excited about in the future here, we have some really great projects that we're working through pricing. I've alluded to working with Hutker Architects of Possible Architecture. Both of those projects we're sinking our teeth in, for lack of better terms, and really, honing in on the design and figuring out, like, one of the biggest things we talk about a lot is our pre-construction process. And that is really invaluable in this case because design is happening, pricing changes, pricing is going up on material. Like, we need to keep a pulse on that. And there's no better way to do that than to have our pre-construction service, implemented, and working alongside the architect at the same time they're designing, we're pricing and kind of volleying this back and forth. So we have those projects on the boards. And then we have this really cool project. You guys have always alluded to, like, oh, it must be, I almost said it must be nice, which is probably one of the sayings I hate the most. But there are comments like, oh, it must be nice, or it's like, oh yeah, you guys are obviously super expensive, and yeah, of course there's a premium to working with us. But it doesn't necessarily mean that we're expensive. I say that, and I don't know if that's the right way to put it, but I mean, there's a premium to working with us. And yes, a lot of the projects that we do are expensive, but that is, a product of the time that we put into them. But with that being said, we have this really cool project coming up in Quincy, and it's this little cottage that is on the water, has an amazing water view, and the home has really been kind of untouched for, 30, 40 years, and someone had started to do some renovations, kind of cleaning the place up, and now under the new acquisition, it has it is basically kind of turned a leaf in the sense of what could this home be, and not only just what could this home be this year, but in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, and we want to do it in a different way. We want to prove that our process doesn't always allude to spending more money, especially when it comes to materials. Our process is about being more thoughtful. And we're going to document this renovation start to finish and talk about how you can be more thoughtful with less expensive materials to net an outcome that is really special. And I truly believe that is the product of what we do, is we are thoughtful with our approach. We think these details through to make sure that we're, approaching it with creativity. Going back to our Rhode Island project, if you go to Julia's page, she actually posted this really cool backsplash. I've literally never seen this backsplash detail ever before. It kind of stems off the white cedar shingle pattern, and we're going to do it with a really inexpensive dowel tile. And that, is a perfect example of using a less expensive material in a more creative, thoughtful way. So this project in Quincy is exactly that. We're going to prove our concept all the way through. So stay tuned for that series coming up on our YouTube here in the next few months. So let's get to a question. I got a question. It was DM'd to me. And the question was, when selecting finishes, what's the best way to go about it? And do I need a designer? I'm going to answer this in a couple different ways. Well, I'm going to try to summarize it. You don't need a designer, but I also equally think that you do need a designer, or at least someone with a design mindset. All of our projects, I would say all of our projects, have an architect and an interior designer on them. They're extremely valuable to the process. And when I say you don't need a designer to help with material selection, say tile selections and things like that, you have to understand that you are giving up more of your time, you're giving up more of your bandwidth, and you're giving up the opportunity to explore some of the creativity. Because working with someone that is immersed in the industry is valuable for many reasons. They're going to make the process hopefully more efficient, because if I go to a tile store right now, I'm overloaded with the amount of tiles, and it's like, where do I even start? where a designer knows the product, is constantly evaluating product. Myself as a builder, or even in the design world, how I am, I'm immersed in this stuff. I'm looking at architecture on a constant basis. I'm looking at product on a constant basis. I'm looking at design in homes constantly. So I'm immersed in it, and it's part of my job, but it's also part of my passion and truly just what I truly enjoy. So me being able to constantly have that information fed to me, through the use of social media and things like that, that has been enormously beneficial. And same thing with working with a designer. These designers are immersed in the products, immersed in design constantly. They're always being introduced to new products. They're always researching new products. They can kind of steer you away from, you don't want to use that product because of XYZ. Or, I remember when cement tile hit this peak, a lot of people were installing it without the realization that it would discolor, and like all the the negativity around cement tile. People weren't aware of it, but you would talk to designers and they became aware of it. And then all of a sudden you see these cement tile products turn into ceramic products. And then, things change. But the benefit of working with the designers, they should be able to make the process more efficient. They should be able to bring more quality information to you, more quality selections to you. All of those things are part of what the value that they bring to the table. So if you are building a home and you have, say your builder has in there an allowance to build, or for a tile allowance of $10 a square foot, well, that's helpful information. You can chat with the designer on that and figure out, all right, well, I have a $10 a square foot tile allowance. Well, they work within that, or hopefully they work under that allowance, and think of more creative ways to use, better materials. Or maybe you do end up spending more than $10 a square foot, and you work with the builder and the architect, and you adapt that. But ultimately, John Horan always says that our job is to manage regret. And that's going to be the same thing when it comes to design, is we want to make sure that, myself as a builder, we want, or I and we, and as builders, I speak for, we want to make sure that we are positioning ourselves and our client for success. And by partnering with good designers and good architects, that's exactly what we're doing. And ultimately, we should all share the same goal, and that goal is to build a really thoughtful and beautiful home. So hopefully that answered your question. If you have a question, drop it below here. If you're watching this on YouTube, drop it in the comments. If you're listening to this on your podcast apps, which is available on all your podcast apps, drop me a DM at Nick Schiffer on Instagram or at NS Builders. I'll manage both of them. I'll make sure I get to your question in a future episode. Stay tuned for this week's site visit, as well as our Revealed series with the behind the scenes in the shop. And of course, the Modern Craftsman podcast coming out every Monday. This podcast is brought to you by Reno Run. So we have been using Reno Run for a couple months now. Previously, we would spend hours leaving the job, going to the lumber yard, picking up material, probably grabbing a coffee on the way back, getting back to work, and hopefully doing that all within 2 hours, and then trying to get right back into the swing of things, knowing that it's probably going to take 30 minutes to ramp back into the mindset of what you were doing before. We just were wasting a ton of time. Think about doing that once a week, or multiple times a week. That's a ton of time. Time is money. So we've been working with Reno Run to replace that. We can place our order on our phone, online, and we can get that material delivered oftentimes in 2 hours or less. Plus, they can always bring us some fresh coffee with that order. If you guys want to find out more, podcast.renorun.ns.